YouTube. Give me 2 seconds. We should be live. I just want to make sure. Is it on both? Okay, yeah, we're live on both. Okay, nice. All right. Well, I guess we'll have to cut that part out of the actual recording. We're just so, yeah, we're just so authentic. We can't even help it. Okay. All right. Well, with that, I guess we'll go ahead and get things started. Like I said, I don't know how many people will join in, but the way if anybody is watching right now, the way we're gonna do this is just treat it as like a normal podcast, and then actually, I am actually behind on what I have to do here. So let me just. What are you doing? Uh, I saw that. Give me 2 seconds here. I gotta do one thing. Th- Clearly, yeah. Uh, mm, yeah, it'll say on both. I, zero. Well, yeah, I didn't think there'd be people right away. Oh, oh, yeah. This actually turns out to just be like a total waste of time. Uh, Wait, why am I not able to? Here's what I'll do. Some of this I just like could not physically do until we actually went live, so that's the only reason why. For let's go. Okay, I'm gonna have the Twitch chat on my other monitor, and then this will just be on my phone, so I can see what's going on. Okay. Actually, let's do it like this. Okay. Down to 3. Someone really got bored. They're like, all right, well, we're not even. We have no patience for this. We have to see their faces? Yeah, we're out now. Okay. Okay, we're ready. Okay, I got both chats open, so if anybody says anything, I'll be able to see it. Yeah. All right, sweet. Okay, all right. Well, after we thought we were ready about 3 times, now we are actually ready to start. For anybody watching, anybody listening to the replay, which will be on Spotify and everything else, we're doing a live edition of episode 6 of our podcast, and today we'll be talking about WSU's win over Colorado State, which we were both there for on the road. They're on a bye this week, which is why we have a chance to do this. So there's no game this weekend to talk about. But we'll talk about kind of their defense, limiting CSU to 3 points, all the superlatives that led to, and then kind of a look ahead at the rest of their season. Obviously, 2 really tough games, 2 top 25 games actually, and 1 top 5 game coming up the next couple weekends. So we will get to all of that coming up. But so this is just super exciting, and I think it's gonna be awesome. So all right, anyway. So as far as a win over Colorado State goes, so that was a 20-3 decision. Zeviekos throws 2 touchdown passes, both in the first half. No one scores in the second half, but 1 touchdown goes to Jeremiah Noga on a 35-yard pass, and the other one goes to Adamola Fallier on what was, I mean, I don't watch any of Zevi's film at Bryant, but I cannot imagine he made an easier pass in any of those 3 years than he did to Mo on that touchdown. So those there are the 2 touchdowns, 2 field goals from Jack Stevens, who remains perfect in his Cougar career. And then obviously, like I said, no scoring in the second half. We have had a little bit more time to digest this one than we would have had on a normal schedule. So I guess first of all, Jamie, where is your head at? How have you kind of processed the way that one went on Saturday? Yeah. I can hear you. Yeah, someone's saying they
They
can't
can't
hear
hear
you.
you.
Uh,
Uh,
sorry, give
sorry,
me
give me
2 seconds.
2 seconds.
We are
We are
working
working
on it.
on it.
Clearly,
Clearly,
we
we
are
are
prepared
prepared
for
for
any and
any and
all
all
troubleshooting
troubleshooting
issues.
issues.
Sorry.
Sorry.
Audio.
Audio.
Sorry,
Sorry,
give
give
me
me
audio
audio
input
input
capture.
capture.
Uh,
Uh,
are you
are you
serious? You
serious? You
can't
can't
hear
hear
Jamie?
Jamie?
That is
That is
bizarre.
bizarre.
Here,
Here,
say
say
something.
something. Uh, check your microphone. Like, what is your microphone set to to be? Like, yeah, yeah, yeah. Like, if you hit the microphone, it just says like the Mac microphone. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay. Well, then in that case, the problem is going to be actually here. Say something real quick. Hmm. Okay, that's not good. The problem is on my end. Um, well, no, the problem is in my like streaming software. So I just got to figure out how to yeah, right. Well, obviously, yeah, but the problem is it's on the stream. Um, so hold on. Um, well, it's not like the actual like me software is fine. Also, we have 6 people watching. We sincerely apologize for these issues. We did not foresee this happening, and part of this we couldn't have even has seen it, but we started it because of the nature of a live stream. So, give us just a couple minutes, and we'll get this show back on the road. Uh, okay. And the problem is, I can't even have you entertain our audience because I can't hear you. So you just it's clear. It's clear. Yeah. He just he actually just said he hates the Cougs. Can y'all believe that? You have you have no way to defend yourself. It's crazy. Okay, I'm just kidding. He did not say that. Um, okay. Window caption. You could hear yourself. Oh, yeah, yeah. I'm saying like the problem is on the streaming software, and it's not picking up audio. Like it's hard to describe, but I know what the issue is. I gotta just figure it out. Yeah. Okay. So I'm hold on. Window capture. Okay, we don't need that. We don't need that. Hello, hello, hello. Okay, that's good. And then, oh shit. Um, yeah. So for anybody new to the stream, we were having some audio issues hearing Jamie, so we're trying to resolve that as we speak. I don't understand. All we got to do is get you on a Google Meet, apparently. But I don't understand. Like, so okay, okay, hold on, hold on. Right over there. Okay, 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 okay. Can y'all hear Jamie now? Wait, say something. They can't. Oh, okay, okay, okay. Nope. Okay, the answer is no. Shit. Okay. Sorry about this, guy. This is we. I thought I had this all squared away. I spent the last couple hours setting it all up. Um, but what I don't understand is if it picks up my audio from the Google Meet, then why would it not pick up yours? No, the problem is not like what mic we're using. The problem is that my streaming software is not picking up audio from your end, but it is picking it up on my end, which I don't understand how that works. Um, okay. Let's see. Let's see. Let's see. Let's see. Let's see. Let's see. Move this. Um, okay. Say something now, really quick. Yeah. Sorry about this, guys. I don't understand what the problem is. I mean, I kind of do, but I don't understand how to figure it out. Oh, hold on, 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 hold on. We might we might be cooking. Okay, now say something.
17th time's the charm.
Okay, y'all should be able to hear him now, right? Please say yes.
Hey!
It's working? Okay, beautiful. Okay, okay, okay. Nice, 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 nice. Okay. The problem is on my end, which I always figured was the case, but we actually figured it
Well,
out.
it certainly wasn't my fault.
Okay, well, basically, we're back on track, and we're gonna have to basically restart the few minutes that we had already done.
We got to
Um,
upload this whole thing. They got to hear everything. Even the people who aren't tuned in right now, they have to No context. Wazoo. Sweet.
Well,
Repub.
we had to make it on there somehow. We just had to, have a few technical issues. Okay. All right. We're back on track, and we're just gonna act like none of that happened.
We just had to turn it off and back on again.
Exactly. Okay. So basically, um, all right. We should be cooking. Oh, we should be cooking now. And okay. Okay.
Alrighty then.
All right. So basically, none of that happened, and we're gonna restart.
They've already played Ole Miss now. Now we have two games we got to recap.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. We have a lot to get to, even more than the last, like 20 minutes ago. All right. So anyway, all right. So for anybody who just missed the last 10 minutes or so of very exciting material, we are a few days removed from WSU's 23 win over Colorado State. And no one scored in the second half, like I said. But Zeviekos has the two touchdown passes, one to Jeremiah Noga and one to Ademola Faye, which, like I said before, may have been the easiest pass of his entire career. I haven't seen any of, I don't think either of us are film experts on how he played at Bryant, but like I said, I cannot imagine he got any easier passes in those 3 years. So that was all the scoring besides the two field goals from Jack Stevens, who, like I said, remains perfect as a Coug. And that was all the scoring besides the field goal from Colorado State. I believe it was in the first half. So anyway, both of us were there for that, like I said, which is even more exciting. And this is kind of what we left off on before we ran into some technical issues. But Jamie, tell us kind of where your main takeaways were and kind of how you're processing the way that one went on Saturday.
Yeah, I think they needed to get a win. I think obviously that was pretty much self-explanatory when you lose the way they did to North Texas, and even when you look at the end of the scoreboard at the end of the game versus Washington, maybe it didn't tell the whole story, but it still shows a 35-point loss to your biggest rival. So they needed that one going into a bye week with Ole Miss on the other side of the bye. They needed to find a way to get a victory, and I think the manner in which they were able to do so speaks volumes more so than maybe even just getting a win. If they had won that game 49-31, it's like, great, that's a win, but it doesn't, it doesn't calm the doubts. It doesn't, satisfy some of the gripes about the defense that, we saw and heard in the previous two games. You look at the Colorado State game, 334 total yards, 3 total points. It's the first time they haven't allowed a touchdown since 2018. First time they've done it on the road since 06. First time they've allowed 3 or fewer points on the road since 96. So pretty historic numbers in terms of defensive success. And, I think Colorado State's not a good team. They're not, in fact, I'd say they're kind of a not very good team, but, they went on the road and scored 21 versus Washington. They're still a Division I FBS football team. You hold anyone out of the end zone, I don't care if it's Colorado State or whoever, you had a pretty good day at the office. And I think when you look at Washington State and just the body of work in that game, one red zone trip, and it was a turnover on downs. I guess technically there was a second that turned into a fumble, Kenny Worthy forcing it, but the defense was everywhere. The pass rush was good. They did a good enough job stopping the run. They didn't get killed by the quarterbacks, by Jackson Brousseau's legs. Granted, he's not a big runner. And then they just, again, every time it felt like Colorado State maybe had some momentum, they had a big play. They came up with 2 big plays. Drive's done. You move on to the next. So I think it was a pretty inspiring performance on what the defense can become.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I wrote about after the game is that it sounds crazy, but I think both of us came away from the North Texas and UW games thinking that their defense was not actually as bad as you might be led to believe based on giving up 59 and 52. And I think you saw that bear out against CSU. Like when they finally got a chance, when the offense did not turn the ball over, because I mean UNT the 5 turnovers, UW 3 turnovers. I don't think it's any coincidence that you have 8 combined turnovers, you give up 111 points. You give up no turnovers, you give up 3 points. Like that, to me, that's no coincidence at all. And that's kind of something that I wrote about during the week is that they were actually going into this game, at least they were last in the country, both in terms of offensive or average drive start on offense in terms of field position and where their defense was starting on average on their field position. So once you get that issue turned around, I think you give the defense like kind of a fair shake and an opportunity to actually like play without their backs against their own their backs not against the wall. And you saw that. I think this is like closer to what we actually think that their defense can be. I mean, I don't think either of us are like thinking they're going to allow 3 points to Ole Miss or Virginia, but I think like this is a much better like depiction of like where they are. And and also granted, like I mean, to me, Colorado State was like that was a brutal offensive performance. Like some of the, I mean, I think what they had like 7 penalties. They had, I mean, they brought out Toss Bullock for I think 3 or 4 different rushes, and like everybody in the entire stadium knew what was about to happen. And to their credit, they blew it up, but. I just think that goes to show just like how really kind of a team that they are right now. But all of that notwithstanding, I mean, I think they needed this on defense. I thought the pass rush was incredible. I mean, I think Ram Stevenson had one was shared by Polano and Bryson Lamb, and then obviously the two by Sony Finau, which you were all over after the game. So like. I I think that's like one like if there's anything that's like stayed the same from on the defensive end from all these 4 or I guess 5 games now is that I mean to me their pass rush has been like super consistent. Maybe a little less so against UW, but I think I mean to me, Jamie, that's like the part of the defense that like can show up like wherever they are and like almost wherever they play.
Yeah, even if you just kind of look at like the pressure numbers, I mean, even against UW, I mean, they got I think 16 pressures against a Big Ten slash big money offensive line. The one game they didn't was North Texas, and obviously there was just so much else going on in that game that
Yeah.
part of just the system that Eric Morris runs is the quick pass game. They're not going to get pressure that way, but 16 against Idaho, 22 against San Diego State. And then, Colorado State had 43 dropbacks, and there was a pressure on 26 of those. So I
Damn.
did a whole article you can find on cougfan.com, hashtag shameless plug. But you just kind of breaking down each of these pressures. And, I think the one thing they're going to need to work on, and I talk about that in the article, is just finding some contain. It's still too often that a quarterback can get out of pressure. And it's not necessarily, it's a missed tackle. It's the defensive ends maybe crash too hard and suddenly there's an opening in the middle. But there were also a lot of examples where they played it perfectly. The ends kind of close in, and then one of the tackles is able to make a play. We saw that last year when Ansel Dinbu would get his sacks. Most of the time it was because David Gusto was taking up 9 blockers, and suddenly the quarterback tries to escape and someone's waiting for him. So I think the way in which they got to the quarterback was good. I think the amount of guys that were able to generate pressures. I mean, you had I want to say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 different guys had a pressure
Wow.
on Saturday. And that doesn't even include guys like Taase. They don't give Bryson Lamb a pressure, which is funny because he had
He had a sack. Yeah, that's
I guess
crazy.
technically he kind of finished the play. It was Paletti who got the pressure. And Lamb kind of
Oh
finished
yeah.
up. But either way, he obviously had an impact in the pass rush.
Yeah.
So I think you're seeing some of the depth. And I think in a lot of ways, what you are seeing right now is what they badly needed last year when they didn't have Ron Stone, they didn't have Brennan Jackson, and you kind of needed that by committee pass rush, and you just didn't get it. And, they generated pressure, but they didn't finish very many sacks last year. And if they did, it came from the interior. Whereas this year, I mean, Isaac Terrell is having a monster season, a big breakout. You're finally kind of seeing the version of Ram Stevenson that we, kind of had heard about and saw glimpses of for years. Paletti's been a really nice addition. And then I think you can get enough pressure from the interior to where it does offset a little bit of losing Max Balloon, who had been their best interior pass rusher.
I was gonna say part of what makes this so remarkable is that you're doing it without, I mean, one of your two starters on on the interior of the defensive line, and I mean, and that is no, I mean to be clear, that is like no easy loss. I mean, just off the measurables alone. I mean, he's 6'6". I don't know what he weighs in at, but like obviously there's a big
285.
280. Leave it to Jamie to just like know what guys away off the top of his
Oh, yeah.
head. I'm not if you're surprised by that, you obviously don't know Jamie very well. But yeah, just off the measurables alone, you see what you're missing out on, and then obviously like the production on top of that. So um, to do that without him, I thought was like really remarkable, and also just a testament to what Jamie already touched on, which was the depth that they really really needed, and they're making the most out of that. So
Yeah, I mean,
um,
Donovan Fitzmaurice gets 2 snaps and he has a pressure on one of them. And on special teams, he would have blocked the field goal if Bryson Lamb hadn't.
It was Lamb on the block,
Lamb
right?
got the field goal. Yeah, I think
Yeah.
Jimmy Rogers thought after the game it was Fitzmaurice. But if Lamb doesn't get it, Fitzmaurice does get it. His game was right there.
Yeah.
But you plug in a true freshman, one pressure on 2 snaps. Okay, that's pretty productive.
I think Jimmy was just ready. I think Jimmy was just ready to give Fitzmaurice some credit because I think he talked about him during the week, like, "Hey, we're going to get this guy some run," and he's in there for a field goal block almost. So
yeah, and he had burst through the middle too. Him and Lamb both. So
yeah. Well, and that's I think we're starting to see the freshmen that are really going to make an impact. I think you might have written about this the other day, but just like so, it's Pabst obviously has gone over the limit. Has Peterson gone over the limit?
Peterson's at 5, and Stringen's at 5.
5. Okay, and those are the only 3 so far.
Yeah, because Sorrell's at 3, Russell is at 2, and now Fitzmaurice is at 1. But I would say you never know. But right now, it kind of feels like they're going to keep Sorrell and Russell where they're at. They didn't play the last 2 games. I think kind of the idea probably when it comes to Sorrell is, okay, we want to give – obviously he has another game he could play before the red shirt, but what happens if you actually need him? You don't want to have him play 6 snaps on special teams in a random game and then be like, oh, man, we actually are going to need him, and now it's going to cost us his red shirt. And to some degree, the same with Russell. And we'll see what happens with Fitzmaurice, because Balloon's not – Jimmy hasn't exactly hasn't outright said, oh, he's done for the year, but he's pretty much alluded to he's done for the year. So you've got 7 games left. Fitzmaurice can appear in 3 more without them burning his red shirt. How does that all kind of work in? Can you get away with the other 4? Do you try and get Elijah Tucker in maybe for a game or Connor Sullivan? So I think it'll be interesting to see how they handle that. But I tend to think he's the only other guy they might burn the red shirt of, barring an injury to where you have to plug in Russell or have to plug in Sorrell.
Yeah. So that's that. What I want to talk about from this game as well is what we thought about their rushing game. Like, I think for both of us, the immediate reaction after the game was like,
it existed.
It existed for sure, but also, and and this might be just me speaking for myself, but I think my heat of the moment, instant reaction was their running game finally, like you said, existed, but also looked pretty good. And it didn't look pretty good, relatively speaking, to what we've seen already. But kind of the way my opinion has shifted over the last couple of days is that they had 35 yards on the ground in the second half, entirely. And I think if you take out, I have it right here, Pulalasi led the charge on the ground with 50 yards on the ground, but 45 of those came on one run. So take that out, for example. Not that I'm not trying to take away credit for him as the great run, but take that out, for example, and the rushing totals go down to 113 yards on 32 carries, otherwise known as 3.5 yards a carry. And you look at kind of the whole picture overall, and right now, as of recording right now, they're at 77.8 yards per carry. Point per game. Sorry, that'd be crazy. Which is 77.8 yards per game on the ground, which is third to last in the country. So the way my mind has gone the last couple of days is that it's still kind of a rough sledding on the ground. Angel Johnson. We saw him get loose for a couple, 4 or 5 yards, 4, 5, 6 yard carries, but he ends up with 32 yards on 8 carries, I think. So as much as maybe we wanted to commend their running game for finally quote unquote coming alive, I still think that they still have a lot of work to do on that front.
Yeah, I think there's a balance between this was the best it had looked since week 2. But also, it's still not perfect. I think now, granted, with the way Johnson ran, you give him 20 carries, he gets 80 yards. That feels better than 8 for 32, for example, because he averaged 4 yards a carry. And then, you're correct on the fact that the Pulalasi run kind of skews some of the numbers. But I would almost say in that same boat, they weren't even getting those runs for the first 5 weeks.
That's
even
true.
Against San Diego State, they didn't really have the home run. So the fact that they could even get one of those, okay, well, that's progress. Max Woods had a couple nice runs. Johnson, again, it felt like there was a little bit more running room. And then the big thing for me that I keep looking at when it comes to that game is they had Colorado State had one tackle for loss on a running back. They had 3 total. The other was a sack on Eckhouse, and then a tackle for loss on Eckhouse. But that was what killed them so much against Idaho, against North Texas, against Washington, is it wasn't that they weren't getting the big plays, is that they weren't even getting positive plays. There was a couple times during the game we talked about, it's like, oh, that's a 3-yard run. Like, that's not what they're going for on each play is a 3-yard run, but it's like, oh, that's progress. Like, that's positive yards. You get 3 yards every play, you're moving the ball a little bit. So I think obviously, they're a ways away from where they want to be, and I think where we expected them to be. But I definitely think there were some steps in the right direction of that. Again, you look at how many negative plays there were in those first few weeks, and there really was only just one. The one play was, I think, it was the second quarter. It was the inside run to Johnson, right on the goal line, where it was pretty unpredictable. Colorado State had, I think, 10 guys in the box. It was obvious that they were selling out for the run. So, that kind of goes to some of the play calling. I want not to fault Danny Freund for the play calling, because I think he has called a pretty darn good couple of games. Really, I mean, for I think a decent amount of the season, I think some of the issues haven't necessarily been the play calling as much as it's been the execution. Yeah. But I think that was one where it's like, okay, everyone in the building knew they were going to try and run that up the middle. The same way everyone knew when Josh Bullock came in, Colorado State was going to run with the quarterback, and it was going to fail over and over and over again. So
that was some of the most remarkable things I've ever seen in a live college football game. Just the insistence on doing that.
The crowd to the fourth one, the crowd booing, and it's like, I couldn't blame them. Like,
I would have started booing before they snapped the ball if I was a fan.
I mean, it's you try it once, it doesn't work. Okay, you want to try it again, but they ran the couple plays on one of the fourth down stops in the first half, and it was, if you want to use a quarterback like that, the model way to do it is to look at the way Ben Arbuckle used Cam Ward and John Mateer, because there was always the threat for John to do something other than run.
Yeah.
And in all fairness to everyone who tries it, John's a special case because he is such an elite runner and so physical, but he would throw the ball. They had him catch passes. Like, there was some deception and some uncertainty of what he's going to do. When Bullock comes in for Colorado State, he's going to run. I think that basically is kind of why Washington State went away from Julian Duggar, because they may have called passes, but he was just going to tuck it and run every time. I mean, you look at he dropped back 8-9 times and he got sacked 4 of them. So there was no.
I'm gonna say not to I think it would have been pretty easy for them to fall into that same trap with Duggar. Just because of how, he's an athlete, he's a quarterback, but he's yet to complete a pass. So I think that there might have been a little bit of temptation to do something like that with these guys, but they have not done that. JMD 1966 says great point, Jamey, progress. So
thank you.
There is some progress. So yeah, we definitely think that they're kind of at a lower. And also the other point that I want to make before we move on from the rushing thing is that kind of what Debbie talked about after the game is that their last drive that I think ended with a kneel down. It was like a 7.5 minute drive that I think only had one passing play with how many plays that drive took up. So it seems like to me that is a little bit closer to what Jimmy Rogers wants the offense to become, which is when we need to be able to run the ball, we can. Now, obviously, the rushing totals are not going to lead you to believe that that is what's going on. But I think if that last drive, albeit in garbage time, showed you anything, it's that if they need to be able to kill the clock with the running game, they can do that. Even if it's just against Colorado State. So
And the one to your point, there was one completion, one pass play on that drive.
Yeah.
And it was Kaleo Pulalasi for 18 yards. So, there was definitely an ability to do that. And I think, based on where that drive was going, they probably would have finished. I know there's been a lot of talk, and they didn't score in the second half. I mean, they had it 1st and 10 on the Colorado State 27. They were probably going to score on that drive.
Yeah.
But, 97 seconds left in the game, or 87 seconds left in the game, you're up 17 points. there's no sense in getting anyone injured. They're not gonna do the Jed Fish chase.
They're not pulling.
They're not pulling yards from Coleman.
Wait, they're not pulling a David Riley. Is what you're saying?
I don't. You mean they're not pulling a David Riley's players?
Yeah, sorry.
maybe namely a couple who play for other teams now, but
yeah. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. Sorry, go ahead.
No, but yeah, I mean they only had 4 drives in the entire half, and one of them, I mean, was a decent enough drive. It's just I think there was the one. Was it the hold? Oh yeah, I think it was the holding call backed him up. That kind of killed that drive, but. You know, they did some good enough things in the second half that's like, okay, you see where they were maybe going. Obviously, you want the points. You need to be more efficient in getting the points, but they were also playing very, very vanilla. And I know one of the counters has been, well, they were throwing the ball deep a lot, but you tell me, and maybe I'm misremembering, but I don't remember a single pass that was really put in harm's way from Eckhouse in that second half. There was the one. I think he was going for Paps, and I think it was Lamondre Joe got up and got a hand on it, but it wasn't necessarily a pass that he could have intercepted. So it was when he went long, there was not into triple coverage. It wasn't, that's almost picked. If he missed the guy, he missed him. He overthrew him, or he missed to where only his receiver was going to get it anyways.
This has been like such a weird narrative around Zevi's deep passing game. Like we were led to believe, just with the way it was talked about during fall camp, that was a weakness of his. And we saw him miss on plenty. There was also the game against Texas where he misses the 2 guys open downfield. It's not like he's been perfect on those, but I think that he's been much better on those deep passes than you might be led to believe based on just kind of the way it's made out to be. The ones that come to mind for me are the one to Ellison in the Apple Cup. Also, I mean, even the one to Ellison against CSU that ended up getting dropped. Obviously, the touchdown to Noga in Fort Collins. I think, I mean, for me, there are more examples of him showing a pretty good deep ball than there are examples of him missing them.
Right. Yeah, there's been a couple. There was a couple of touch passes to Meredith in the last couple of weeks. Yeah, it's just there's certainly been that was a pretty good looking deep ball.
Yeah.
You mentioned the Ellison one. There was one to Meredith. I think it was just a perfect little float touch pass against Colorado State. And then
that was also, not to cut you off. It's crazy how similar that was to his pass to Meredith in the Holiday Bowl. Do you remember that one?
Yep.
Where he layered it over two. I was that's almost the same exact throw. It was crazy.
Right. And then even again, you mentioned the one to Ellison in the Apple Cup. And I think it has definitely been impressive how good a feel he's had for the deep ball, but also how much they've trusted him to do so. I mean, that was there was the one to Meredith in the Apple Cup too. Kind of the 46-yarder or 48-yarder. Some of that was catch and run, but there's definitely been more of a faith in him throwing the ball deep than I think we originally expected.
Yeah, and that's been huge for them because without the ability to run the ball the way they want to, you have to be able to trust your quarterback to make some of those throws. And I think for the most part, Beckhouse has done that for sure. Okay, is there anything else from that game you want to get to? Anything else on your mind?
I think we kind of covered it. I mean, it was just,
okay. Yeah.
It was, I think it was just one of those games where, midway through the third quarter, it was Colorado State might get a touchdown, but there was no feeling that they were going to get 3 scoring drives.
No, I remember watching Oregon State versus Houston the night before, and even though Houston was down, I was like, okay, they might have a little bit of juice to come back, and they do. Whereas in this game on Saturday, I was like, I don't think either one of us thought that Colorado State had any chance. Part of that was to do with the Cougars defense, and part of it had to do with just how bad they looked on offense. So again, not to diminish any credit for Wazoo. We've talked about all the plays they made on defense, but it's also true that my God, man, that was a rough showing. I think it's come out since then that Norvell has given up play calling duties. Have you seen that?
Yeah, it's they gave it over to Matt Mumme.
Yeah.
Who's the son of Hal Mumme, who was kind of the godfather of the air raid with Mike Leach, but. No, and I think also what has to be said about that too is there have been other games in the past couple of years where you felt like, the other team's not going to score. You felt like that in the Idaho game. You felt like that in Wyoming last year, and credit to the offense for creating enough separation. to where even if Colorado State puts one drive together, it's 20-10. Whereas Idaho puts the one drive together and the game's tied.
Yeah.
Or it's a 3-point game. Wyoming puts the one drive together last year and you lose. So there does have to be some credit to the offense of building up a big enough lead to where that's where part of the confidence. I mean, again, if it was 10-3 that whole way, I don't think we would be talking about the same confidence because all Colorado State would need is one big play, one coverage breakdown, and suddenly, oh, shoot, game's tied. And granted, I think they would have called the offense much differently if that was the case. Washington State, that is. So I think the offense deserves some credit for kind of putting some separation between the two teams. And then I think and we saw this against San Diego State too, when the defense kind of gets that, blood in the water, they kind of smell, the other team reeling a little bit or feel the other team reeling. They're opportunistic and they pounce and they put teams down very, very quickly in that way. And you look at the 3 wins and they've given up 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, no, I mean I think like as long as they can avoid turning the ball over, like all kinds of possibilities open up. And for me, that was almost the biggest takeaway just in that game in general is like when they take care of the ball, they can do 1,000 more things than what happens after they can't stop turning the ball over. So
one turnover in the 3 wins. Or 8 in the 2 losses. I mean, again,
exactly.
Sometimes it's that simple.
Yeah, and like just because it was putting the defense in like really horrible spots, and also just like being out there, and that's also like in Texas it was like 90 degrees that day.
Right. Well, I think
imagine.
we talked about it after that. North Texas averaged. I think it had less yards and averaged less yards per play in a game they scored 59 points than Washington did in the 2024 Apple Cup in a game they scored 19 points. So
it's crazy.
Yeah, that I think that's always the caveat that comes with the defense is the North Texas game. They were basically put in the most unenviable positions over and over and over again. And then with the Apple Cup, it was just there was a level of talent that you saw this weekend what it takes to shut down that talent, and it's the $90 billion.
It's Ohio State. Yeah.
Ohio State.
Exactly. Okay, so I think that's about all the thoughts we have on just that game in general. Let's take some of the questions here that we got, at least on my Twitter. If anybody's watching this on Twitch or YouTube, feel free to chime in around now. But just from Twitter right now, there's one of these that looks ahead, which we'll get to. But here's one. It says, this is from Nathan Schroeder. It says, does Zevi give WSU more options for design and run plays than Jackson Potter?
Yes.
The answer is a clear-cut yes, in my opinion. Which we saw, I think it was like the second play from scrimmage that they had an RPO and Eckhouse ends up pulling it for like a 15-yard gain. Like I think that says like he gives them, and that's something I wrote about after the game too. Is that like I think that like his mobility goes like way understated too. Like he's obviously not like a Julian Duggar or some like just sheer 5-star athlete, but I think like he's quick. I mean, I hate to use this cliche, but he's like deceptively quick. You know what I mean? Because the reality is like that phrase just means like white, but the reality is like that's kind of what it is with him. Like I like look at Zevi Eckhouse as like just a crazy athlete, but I think if those plays he made tells you anything, it's like he could be athletic enough,
Yeah, I mean that's the thing, is you don't have to be John Mateer or Lamar Jackson or any of these great mobile quarterbacks to run, not just to be able to move and to be able to run kind of the RPO game. The problem with that scheme under Potter is that he's just not very mobile and he's not a big threat to run. And I think we saw defenses just sold out on when it's an RPO, he is either throwing it or he is handing it off. He is not going to take it himself. And that basically becomes, play action.
Yeah.
Which is still a good scheme, but it takes out a lot of that third option that makes RPO so successful. And I think it's still something he can grow into. He's a young quarterback. He's not going to suddenly become extremely quick, but you can still run RPO as a, less mobile quarterback if you give off the threat of running. And I don't think he did that very much. And I think it's probably because he hasn't ever really been asked to do so, because you look at his size, you look at his frame. I mean, I can't remember if we've talked about it. Jackson Potter would have been like Mike Leach's dream. He would have been a golden fit for
Yeah.
the air raid because he's very similar in ways to Luke Falk and to Anthony Gordon, whereas Eckhouse has a little bit more of the Minshew kind of, not just in terms of the moxie, but just some of the athleticism, the ability to make plays, and it just opens things up enough to where I think, you can tell me if you disagree. I think the best two games that Danny Freund has called so far have been the last 2 weeks. And I think that is, and I think within saying that, I think it's also because he has had a quarterback who can really run that RPO game the way that it's directed to be run and be able to move outside the pocket. And I think he's called some. The play we talked about this in the box, the touchdown pass to Mola, just a little rollout throwback. I mean that's brilliant. I mean
It was
it's
awesome. Yeah.
so hard to defend. I think I think the offense opens up a lot more with Eckhouse just because of he has the mobility, but he also still has some of the leadership, the experience, the decision making, and so on.
Yeah. Well, perfect segue into a question from Max here. It says, how would you rate Freund's play calling last week, and what would you like to see the offense try more? The way like my immediate reaction is just more RPOs with Zevi Eckhouse. Like I
Mm-hmm.
said, that was like the second play from scrimmage that they ran that with, and it turned into a 15-yard rush. And he's like I said, like he's fast enough. Like I don't think the word that comes to mind when you think about Zevi Eckhouse is like athlete or like fast, but. Like for example, not to bring like my Chiefs fandom into this, but like the way people talk about Patrick Mahomes is like he's not fast, but he's always fast enough. You know what I mean? And that's kind of obviously not. I'm not saying Zevi is Patrick Mahomes, but like he always seems to be fast enough to get out of pressure, to make people miss enough to get downfield. And I think you saw all of that on Saturday. And I think like if there's one thing that I think they would do well to try a little bit more of, it's just like plays that roll him out. Like we saw plenty of that against UW. Like they couldn't stop giving that pressure, which is to be expected against that kind of defensive line, but like. They rolled him out, gave him space, which he can do because of his mobility and his arm, speaks for itself. So I think like that kind of goes in what I was just saying is that like if they find themselves like these two games coming up, for example, like they're probably going to be a little bit overmatched up front because of like those guys that Ole Miss and Virginia could run out there. But like we saw how they could respond to that against UW, which is just rolling, at us out, giving them space to throw, giving them time to throw, and he can make that work. Like I think that's like what we might see out of their offense coming up against these two, Ole Miss and Virginia is just kind of plays that involve Eckhous's legs more. And that goes for these two games. It goes for, I mean, the rest of their season. Honestly, I think it's just like getting him out of the pocket and kind of letting him do his thing. Oh, are we? Okay. That should not be happening. I didn't change anything. That's bizarre. What on earth?
Okay,
Okay,
say
say
something
something
now.
now.
Hello,
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 hello.
hello.
Wait, are
Wait, are
you
you
serious?
serious?
What?
What?
What
What
on
on
earth? I
earth? I
didn't
didn't
change
change
anything.
anything.
MacOS
macOS
audio.
audio.
Just The setting you did that just tried hitting that on and off again or something.
Okay, how about now?
Can
Can y'all hear him now? Here, say something now.
Okay, now I think we got me again.
Yeah, can they hear you now?
Okay.
We're back. Okay.
Anyway,
I forget what you were talking about, but go ahead.
I said I'm not. I said yeah. I'd like to see a little more of the kind of the outside run, get just to kind of free the backs up and get them into space a little bit and create a little more speed in that way.
Yeah. Well, and that's like if we've noticed anything about
I have to echo.
I think that was because I had the YouTube link up and I had the volume on to see if I could hear myself, and I think it was coming through twice. So I think that should be fixed now.
Okay, am I still echoing for you guys?
Because I would never want to make anyone have to hear you. I mean, wait, what?
Whoa! I mean, they're having a look at your face, my friend. That should be.
Yeah, one of us has actual facial hair, another one has a caterpillar above their lips. So you want to get into this?
Well, I'm echoing. I am echoing, but that's not good.
Check. Maybe do you have like a YouTube?
Hold on. Oh. Okay, so it should be fixed now. How's it sound like to you guys? Am I echoing? Fixed? Okay, beautiful.
All right, we're good. Continue.
All right. Anyway, this is a challenge in
nice beard, Jamey. Thank you.
Nice beard. Yeah. Well, echo fixed. Beautiful. All right.
Next question.
We were yeah, we might as well just kind of move on here because our thoughts are everywhere. Okay. This comes from JEMD 1966. What does the defense need to do to be more effective at containing the quarterback when they take off? I part of that probably just comes from the way that they let Rousseau kind of get away from some of those pressures in the backfield on Saturday. I think you touched on this earlier. Is part of it is just like kind of not rushing too fast or too hard. Like we just saw so many times that like the ends just kind of went like full speed ahead, and then they ends up like all Bristow has to do is just kind of like sidestep to the side, and then all of a sudden he's free and he can make a play. So I think part of it is just like kind of not slowing down a little bit. That sounds a little bit like counterintuitive to like your job as a defensive end or an edge rusher, but I think that's kind of what it is. Like I think when you saw like for example like Ohio State against UW the other day, like some of those ends like Demond Williams would drop back and the defensive ends that the offensive line is blocking is like they're not even like going super hard trying to get to they're kind of just like wait and see what he does. And then when he took off, they were there to kind of, escape and bring him down. So, I mean, I don't know if that's like the way that it's tough because like you're not coached to like not go less than 100%. But I think like if this is really the issue that we think it is in terms of letting quarterbacks escape from some of this pressure, I think the answer is just like not kind of slowing down and making sure you're not just going like 110 percent speed.
Yeah, if you want to know what I think about how they should fix it, go to kookfan.com. No, it's
this is crazy.
I don't want to give away the whole article, but I think some of it comes, from just not losing contain in the midst of your rush. Making sure that you're setting the edge and not just blowing past it. And then some of it too, I think having a spy that can there were a couple plays where Brousseau stepped up. And everyone was dropped into coverage, so there was room to run. I do think it's correctable, and I think it's not the worst problem to have because it means you are getting home consistently and you're forcing the quarterback to really think about it. And, and I think, I can't remember if it was either Rich Waltz or Robert Turbin said on the broadcast, it was after the Lamb-Polano split sack on fourth down, basically said, you can't live this way by just scrambling out of pressure. You eventually have to make plays. So, and that is true. I don't care who you are. At some point, trying to scramble and trying to get out of pressure and relying on that to be, your source of offense, it's going to eventually fail and you're eventually going to get to the quarterback.
Yeah. So we've seen plenty of that. Okay, next question is going to come from Alex Juarez. Hope I'm saying your name right. It says, what would you like to see from the transfer portal for next season?
It's hard to say right now. I think just because you just don't know what the roster is going to look like, right? You don't know who's still. I mean, obviously, either that there will be guys who are gone because they graduate, but it's. And I would also say, from our standpoint, The coaches have certain things they're going to want that, that don't necessarily occur to us. It would be like we were both, I think, mildly surprised they took transfer quarterbacks because, like, well, they have Zevi. They're good at quarterbacks. So there's always kind of that aspect, but it's just too hard to know without, because ask us at this time last year, and no one in their right mind says Washington State's going to need a quarterback because everyone is thinking / hoping John Mateer is going to be back.
Yeah.
You wouldn't, and then obviously there was the coaching change involved in that, but it just kind of all depends on what they're able to retain on the roster. Hopefully they retain as much as they possibly can, and then you really can identify a few positions of need and almost be recruiting from a place of luxury rather than a place of, I don't want to say desperation, but when you lose X amount of players to the portal, it doesn't become a chance of we can add depth. It's we need guys who can play right now, and that it's not a we can add if we want to. It's we have to add or we don't have enough bodies kind of thing. So,
Yeah.
I would just say too, the one area I will say is they'll be young at safety after this year because Large, Reeder, and Durant's all graduate. But on the flip side of that, they obviously are pretty high on Peterson, and rightfully so. They're high on Demarius Russell. Deron Goodman has experience. Trey Ridley will have a little bit of experience. So within that, it's like, okay, do they trust those guys or do they want to get some more experience in it? And that's where we can't say because we don't know what the coaches are thinking in their process of how far along do we think these guys are, how close are, some of the young guys, do they think Peterson and Russell, for example, could be a starting safety duo next year? It's hard, and who knows, because guys get better over time. At this time next year, could they be? Sure. But could the coaches say, no, we need another bridge year? Also possible. It's too hard to say at this stage without knowing what the roster is going to look like.
Yeah. Okay, moving right along here, I think we can use this as kind of a springboard into looking at the road ahead. This comes from Luke Westfall on Twitter. It says, what would a realistic version of quote unquote winning look like heading on the road against Ole Miss and Virginia? Rodgers doesn't seem like a moral victory kind of guy, but feels like you have to temper expectations with road matchups versus two elite teams. To me, the answer is just staying healthy and like just keeping bodies a lot, like just keeping your guys healthy. Like th that's the thing is that like like you're going to be overmatched at several positions, as kind of the way we see it. But I think as long as you like don't have any like serious injuries and you can and you feel like you learn something too. Like I know they're going to be facing Trinidad Chambliss at Ole Miss, who's their quarterback, a dual threat guy.
Talk about
Obviously,
mobile quarterback.
yeah, exactly. Oh my God. And then so he's obviously will be a tough matchup, but they have a couple, kind of mobile quarterbacks lined up after that. So Louisiana Tech's quarterback, Blaine Baker is kind of in that mold. And so was the JMU quarterback, Alonza Barnett the third, a little bit less so in that regard.
They use Sluka as their mobile quarterback, but
Okay, yeah.
Matt Sluka, who I think everyone or most people might remember, he was the guy who kind of told UNLV, "No, I need more money, or I'm going to
Oh,
play for you."
he's at JMU now?
Yeah,
Oh
but
my God.
they actually use him in creative ways and not just he's getting the ball to run. They actually use him creatively, and he's a skilled runner. Like I think that was part of the, not to go back into the whole Bullock thing, and
Yeah.
even something with Duggar is there's a difference between being fast and being a skilled runner. It's why
Yeah.
you can't just be a returner because you're fast. You can't just be a running back because you're fast. And from what I saw from Bullock and have seen to some degree from Duggar, I think they're fast, but I'm not sure how good and skilled of runners they are. John Mateer was a very skilled runner, and Sluke is a very skilled runner.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think like if like the point that I was trying to make is that I think if they can like Ole Miss game, for example, I think if they can come away from that, one, no serious injuries, and two, like you feel like you have a little bit of a better plan and better execution against these mobile quarterbacks, then because like the way we see it, like if they can get one win out of the stretch, like that's a giant victory. Um, And but what would be I think what would be more realistic is one, like I said, staying healthy, but also like feeling like you have like a better plan and you actually can, slow down some of these mobile quarterbacks. Because like I said, you got two at least two coming up. I mean, obviously like Oregon State, I mean, Murphy is not mobile, but who knows what they'll be doing with like Gabar Johnson on the quarterback league, for example. So like that's kind of the way I see like how they can get the most out of these two road games coming up.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, you know, the perfect scenario is they manage to win both. But I mean, I think realistically, we can look at these games and say these are going to be I mean, it was already going to be tough to win, and then Ole Miss has made a quarterback change that plays right into what Washington State's weakness is now with mobile quarterbacks.
Yeah.
Virginia has been worlds better than anyone anticipated. So
Yeah.
you kind of looking like, okay, I think, the hope is, yeah, obviously getting out of there healthy, because then you attack the back half of the season, try and get to that 6 wins for the bowl game. But I think it's probably fair to look at those games and say, okay, try, remain competitive, right? Like if they can do to some degree what they did versus Washington, where it's, for 3 quarters, they play tight, and then it just, there's the talent disparity. There's the just kind of the disparity of a power 4 team versus a non-power 4 team. If that takes over, that takes over. But I think there's a very fine line between the way you lose to Washington and the way you lose to North Texas. And I think the way you lose to North Texas is what really is like that's I don't want to say unacceptable, but that's not going to satisfy anybody. Whereas you can look at the Washington game and say, look, they play like that against a team that has, similar resources and similar, budget financials. They probably win a lot of those games. It's just, it comes down to Washington had Damon Williams, Jonah Coleman, Denzel Boston. Washington State didn't,
Yeah.
And that can be applied to Ole Miss and Virginia, where if it just comes down to a pure talent disparity, that is what it is. You're not going to face those teams in the new Pac-12. So I think there's very different ways of how they could lose this game, where it's like of how maybe it gets perceived. And obviously, the coaching staff will never say that. Jimmy Rodgers has said himself, there's no moral victories. You talk to a guy who's won a couple national titles as a head coach, as a coordinator. Moral victories don't exist. But, if they can stay tight and stay competitive with those teams, I think you come out of them feeling, okay, you feel pretty good, and maybe you kind of see what they're working towards and what they're building towards.
Well, what they won't have to worry about in, I guess, UVA is getting the field storm and any of their guys getting hurt that way. I don't know if you guys saw the field storm after that game, but I think that the receiver for Florida State ended up being okay, but kind of a crazy field storm that they showed. The last question from Twitter is kind of an unserious one. I got it right here. It says, oh, give me 2 seconds here. Actually, we got two more. One's an unserious one from John the Coug, who says, "Will Jimmy bring back his man bun for the occasion? What's are you are you ever gonna grow it back out, or are you kind of happy with where yours is
No,
at?" No, okay.
nope, we're good.
Man bun's gone.
We're good. Nope,
Sorry.
it's retired. It has retired itself. Now we just go with whatever you want to call this luscious mane. But no, the man bun. R.I.P. to the man bun.
What people don't know is I grew my hair out to almost that length several years ago. I was hoping it would be like kind of like wavy and cool looking, almost like not curly. I don't have curly hair, but something to that effect. But it ended up being more of like a Trevor Lawrence look, where it's just like super straight and boring. I was like, all right, this is like not this is not the look I had in mind. Um, so anyway, the last question that we got on Twitter comes from Gabe the Babe. Says, is the team planning on staying on the East Coast during the upcoming stretch of Mississippi and Virginia, or will they return to Pullman in between? The way we understand is that they're coming back. Like I know,
Yeah, I
like they
haven't.
still have class, so why not?
Right, right. I mean, I guess it's possible they change, but I would be pretty stunned if there was. I don't think they could probably sell. Hey, 5 days off from classes to stay out back east. I don't think that's happening. Is that going to be a pain in the rear travel wise? Yep, but it's a weird year.
It's a weird year. Yeah, I'm already like I try very hard not to complain too much about the travel because we're getting paid to sit there and watch football at the end of the day. But that travel is going to be brutal for sure. So I'm not looking forward to that. But the games themselves are a blast, and I feel very grateful to be in this position. Um, okay, what else? Like, I guess like, do you have anything else that's kind of on your mind? Like, what? Okay, here's one. Do you think it's more? This is just a question that I came up with just on the spot. Do you think it's more likely, like for either of these two games, or maybe both of them, do you think it's more likely that we see a blowout in terms of the Cougs losing, or it stays like within like two scores, for example?
It's a good question. I think I would say in my mind the most likely scenario. I don't want to. I shouldn't say most likely, but I think there's a good chance it has something like the Washington script, where maybe it's not 7 points at the end of three, but it's 14 points, or you feel like they've played hard, they've played competitive, and then the score. I would say I think there's a chance the scoreboard at the end of the games does not necessarily reflect the competitiveness of the games. I don't necessarily think there's going to be a drive with 4 minutes left where it's, hey, Washington State's got a chance to win. It could happen. College football's weird. We know this. But I would be pretty surprised just based on really how they have played, with the exception of the North Texas game. I would be pretty surprised in the fourth quarter against Washington, but I'd be pretty surprised if it was some kind of 45-10 blowout at half or something, and or anything of that ilk. I guess if it was gonna, I think it would be more likely against Ole Miss. I mean, at the end of the day, Ole Miss is a top 5 team in the country. So I guess maybe as I'm saying this, I do think there's more. I think from Virginia, it's more likely it's fairly competitive and Virginia pulls away. I do think there is certainly the chance that the Ole Miss game can get a little ugly. I think the thing it wouldn't get ugly is because maybe does Ole Miss really pull out all the stops in that game? They're coming off a bye. They're going to have, I'm almost positive. Yeah. I mean, they've got Georgia the next week on the road and then Oklahoma. So they're probably
Yeah,
going
but
to be
UW had Ohio State the week after the Alba Cup, and then
sure. But you also got to figure in that's a rivalry game. There's more,
yeah.
Washington State has more meaning to Washington than Ole Miss Washington State. This
No,
is just
that's
kind
the
of
Cabana Goose Skin.
well, that is fair, but I tend to think that they're going to be the number one concern for Lane Kiffin and Ole Miss is going to be getting out of that game healthy and turning your attention to two games that could more or less decide, are you going to the college football playoff or not? Because after that, Ole Miss doesn't face Alabama. They already beat LSU. You play Georgia, Oklahoma. They don't face Texas. It's South Carolina, the Citadel, Florida, Mississippi State. You get through those Georgia, Oklahoma games, they're probably going undefeated, at least in the regular season. So I think you'll see Ole Miss make sure they get the win. But I don't think, for example, in the fourth quarter, I don't think they're going to be throwing the ball with their starting quarterback. And I don't think they're going to be, if it's a 30-point game the way Washington was. I don't think Lane Kiffin's going to feel like he has something to prove the way Jed Fish did because he made a bad play call in 2024. So I think that could also impact the final score in that game, where that game might seem the scoreboard might say it was closer than it was, and I think the reverse could happen at Virginia.
Not that this is gonna it will get any headlines, but speaking of Gushkin, who transferred from WSU to Ole Miss over the offseason, we just as a side note, we both thought that was like kind of just like a depth addition. Like they have money to throw around as a guy, like, hey, here's
He's
$500,000 to come.
fast.
Yeah, exactly. He's like started the last two games for them is what I saw on PFF before we hit record, and played like 50 snaps against LSU, I think. So like I mean, like I don't know, like what if that's even on his mind that much in terms of playing his old team, but like he'll be on the field. So that's
Yeah,
something.
no, he's been very good for him. And,
Yeah.
I know he got a lot of kind of sideways looks, I think, late last season. Obviously, there were some struggles in there. I think you look at a lot of people look at the San Jose State game when he's matched up with Nick Nash. But, there were times where he played very well last season. And I think of all the issues on the Washington State defense in 2024, I think you have to go down a long list before you get to Gushkin. I think
Yeah.
nickel was towards the bottom of their issues comparatively to, some of the other
Just safety.
major
Yeah.
issues. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think he's playing more kind of a nickel safety role. But, yeah, I mean, he's been very crisp for him. And, again, you have to kind of take into effect that, as we saw, the Jake Dicker defenses were not very good when he was the head coach. And, there's a lot of guys. I mean, between him and Boogie Wilson and David Gusta, that one's not unexpected, and Kalila Ufau and Ansel Dinbu and even Stephen Hall and Ethan O'Connor, they're all either starting or playing roles on Power 4 teams. And for the most part, good Power Four teams. So, again, we've talked about it ad nauseum. Budal Lukta was starting on Washington, although he's out for the year with that injury he suffered in the
For the
Apple Cup.
year?
But
Oh, is that
Mhm.
official now?
Yeah,
Damn,
Fish said that earlier. But
that
we've talked
sucks.
about it ad nauseum. But there was a lot more talent, and I think better coaching staff, better scheme that maybe they had than they had last year has allowed that to come out a little more.
Yeah, it is crazy, and this went for the year before too. But just like the you look back to some of the talent that they had in the 23 and 24 seasons, and kind of where they have gone on to play and succeed, and you're tempted to be like, well, geez, man, like how did you not get more out of that season? I mean,
You mean going 5-7 with the number one overall pick in the draft?
it's
Is that
crazy,
what you're
and
referencing?
not even well, yes, but like not even that. But I mean, like Jaden Hicks was
Yeah.
a safety on that team. Now he's like playing big time snaps for
Shaw
the
Smith Wade
Chiefs.
has
Shaw
started
Smith
NFL
Wade,
games.
yeah,
Brennan
yeah,
Jackson's in the NFL.
it
Kyle
really is.
Williams.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, geez, yeah, just those two teams combined. I mean, like, unfortunately, I think outside of like the late season collapses, that may be Dickert's like kind of legacy or like what people remember him for is just like kind of letting some of those results that did not match the talent they had on the roster who have gone on to produce not only at the Power Four level but also just the NFL.
Right.
So it's kind of crazy the way that played out. Um, but anyway, honestly I think that's about all that was on my mind for this episode. The last point that I was going to make for the Virginia game was I think that one is more likely to play out the way we saw like the Boise State game play out last season, where it's like pretty close game for the first three quarters, and then they were down in the fourth quarter, and it ends up you look at the final score and you're like, oh my God, what a blowout! But not actually reflective of the way the game was played the first three quarters. So if I had to like make like a 3 weeks out kind of prediction, that's kind of the way I would see that game playing out
Mm-hmm.
if I had a gun to my head. So um, anyway, though, I think that was kind of the last thought that I had. Jamie, if there's nothing else on your mind, I think that we might get out of here.
Think I'm all good.
All right. Well, like I said in our inaugural episode, folks who are witnessing quite a historic quite a historic moment, which is Jamie Vinnick running out of things to say. Does not happen every day, so
Never happens.
make sure you jot that one down. Max says, "Good job, guys. Thank you, Max. Thank you to everybody who tuned in. I can't see who's like the total numbers of who's watching right now, but however many it is, we really appreciate you guys tuning in. This has been awesome, and I hope we can keep doing this because once we have these technical issues ironed out, I think it'll be a lot smoother
Yeah,
sailing.
let us know on socials, etc. Whatever. If you guys want us to, just do like a live stream pretty regularly or so on. I mean, it would, most of the times we're recording this in the Wazoo library, which I think I've now been to the library 5 more times to record a podcast than I ever did in school. But I actually went to the library a lot to work. I enjoyed working in there. But yeah,
Yeah.
let us know if you want us to keep trying to do some live stuff, and we might listen.
I am like all for trying new things. Like I definitely want to, stay engaged with you guys and this is I think a pretty good way to pretty good way to do it. So anyway, I think outside of that, that'll probably do it. Like I said, we really appreciate you guys tuning in, whether you're on Twitch or YouTube or just listening to on Spotify and Apple Podcasts to the recording. So with that, I think we're gonna get out of here. Jamie, thank you for joining as always. Thank you to the audience for joining yourselves, and we'll see you guys.